Hello, and first I'd like to say that it's an honour to be invited to address this conference. Korea is obviously one of the leading countries in encouraging and developing a hydrogen economy, and Airliquide was proud earlier this year to announce our involvement in the mobility project at Incheon Airport here in Gyeonggi province. Airliquide is one of the world's leading industrial gas companies. We supply atmospheric and other gases to a wide array of customers, from hospitals and metal workers to steel and chemical manufacturers. In 2018, we published our aggressive climate objectives to reduce our own carbon intensity by 30% by 2025, to support our customers in their decarbonisation, and to support new low-carbon ecosystems. We're already one of the world's largest suppliers of merchant hydrogen. We're involved in all aspects of the supply chain. Not only do we reform hydrogen from natural gas, but we also operate around 40 small electrolyzers today. And we supply our customers by both truck and nearly 2,000 kilometers of hydrogen pipelines. The majority of this hydrogen is used today to desulfurize fuel, but we also supply the space industry, steel, glass, and of course, transport. Airliquide's been one of the leading advocates of the use of hydrogen as a clean transport fuel. Our development work began well over 20 years ago. Just in the last 5 years, we've invested over €500 million in new hydrogen applications. We've installed more than 120 refueling stations. In the US, we're currently building the largest hydrogen liquefier for the mobility market, and we're building the world's largest PEM electrolyzer in Canada at the moment. But of course, we've long recognized the proverbial chicken and egg challenge that hydrogen mobility faces. On the one hand, the lack of refueling infrastructure because of the lack of vehicles, and on the other, the lack of vehicles due to the lack of infrastructure. It's clear that an integrated and coordinated ecosystem of producers, distributors, refueling, and vehicle fleets is essential. This is the only way to ensure that all stages of the supply chain are synchronized and develop as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. One of our major contributions to this objective was the foundation of the Hydrogen Council at Davos back in 2017. Which we've been proud to co-chair with Hyundai over the past couple of years. It was established with two key objectives. First, to support and advocate for the use of hydrogen to address climate change. And second, to bring together the CEOs of companies throughout the supply chain to support and synchronize investment and business activities. Initially, the council consisted of just 13 companies, but it has since grown at the latest count to 92. Most importantly, as a CEO-led industry organisation, it ensures commitment and coordination at the most senior level. And this is important in discussions with governments and policymakers around the world, as it illustrates the commitment of industry to finding effective solutions in partnership with society and public bodies. I should emphasise that governments and policymakers are, of course, a vital part of the ecosystem. Through mandate, policy support, and public finance, they, or in some cases you, create and mould the market framework into which the industry will develop. As you know, here in Europe, where I'm based, we've seen a rush of supportive strategies aimed at recovering from the COVID pandemic in a much more climate-sensitive way. Close to €50 billion of explicit support has been earmarked by a number of countries and the EU, with a carbon contract for difference schemes still to be defined on top of that. And the policy environment is similarly supportive with you in Asia. Airliquide is one of the co-chairs of the Hydrogen Council today, and it's actively working to coordinate the ecosystem with a focus on 3 pillars which are key to the successful positioning of hydrogen. And I'll just borrow 3 slides from the Hydrogen Council. The first pillar is often taken for granted, but it is absolutely pivotal, and that's safety. It's been said many times that it would be impossible today to introduce today's gasoline fueling infrastructure, untrained personnel pumping highly flammable liquid into a vehicle with few safety measures and little oversight or control is unthinkable. Hydrogen presents additional challenges involving high pressures and very low temperatures. And let's be honest, the echoes of the Hindenburg disaster over 80 years ago still resonate today. So for hydrogen to develop as a fuel of the future, able to be used by members of the public, not just highly trained industrial personnel, safety is critical to our collective license to operate. At Airliquide, we've handled hydrogen for decades, and we fully recognise the unique challenges that it presents. Standards and regulations must be established to ensure that newcomers into the industry operate safely and don't jeopardise the development of the market. The industry must work hard to promote the risk awareness, the skills and expertise, and the processes to minimise and mitigate risks. Only this will protect the many new users and the environments in which we all live. Cost is the second and the most obvious pillar. The energy transition will be disruptive right the way through the economy. Not only will it impact industrial supply chains, but it demands significant changes of behaviour by the end consumer as well. Bringing costs down towards that of current solutions will help to reduce the financial burden of that transition. Of course, scale will help enormously. In a study for the Hydrogen Council earlier this year, McKinsey estimated that scaling up electrolysis manufacturing could bring capex costs down by 60% and 40% for other related components. Better loading of a larger distribution infrastructure based on high pressure or ideally liquid hydrogen could bring distribution costs down by 70%. That will all contribute to making hydrogen a competitive alternative to current fossil fuels, particularly for commercial fleets over the next decade. But it'll require coordination of the ecosystem to achieve and to optimize. Finally, clean pathways are also essential. There's little point in redesigning the global supply chain if it doesn't in the end integrate clean, low carbon solutions. But numerous pathways are likely to develop in parallel, requiring coordination throughout the supply chain. Biomethane relies on integration into agricultural and municipal waste chains. Electrolysis has to be coordinated with available renewable or low carbon power. CCUS relies on the development of another infrastructure and supply chain back to appropriate carbon sinks. And industrial process byproducts can be leveraged to provide alternative sources of energy to other markets. So I'd now like to turn to a few practical examples where Airliquide has coordinated the ecosystem to develop and expand specific projects. First, in our home country, France, we created the Hype company to enter the captive fleet market and develop a fleet of hydrogen-powered taxis. Hype was founded in 2015 as a joint venture with a local entrepreneur with 5 drivers and 1 refueling station. We won the support of the Mayor of Paris to open a refueling station near our headquarters in the city centre to showcase the technology for the COP21 meeting, with the support of Hyundai series of vehicles. Toyota then also joined as a partner and vehicle supplier, along with a number of financial investors. Currently, the company operates a fleet of 130 vehicles. The next step will see the expansion of the business to over 600 cars, bigger fueling stations, and integration into electrolysis. Our intention is to develop a replicable package of assets, taxi licenses, and cars that can be adapted and offered elsewhere in the world. Next, I'll mention the Hydrogen Mobility Consortium in Germany, H2M. This seeks to overcome the chicken and egg question by bringing together a number of partners in the supply chain, oil and gas and industrial gas companies, along with auto OEMs, to develop a retail refueling infrastructure. Airliquide founded the H2M consortium with 5 other companies in 2015. It's since won the support of another 5 car manufacturers, including Hyundai, and accessed funding from the German Ministry of Transport and the European Commission. Financial investors have also joined the effort to accelerate the infrastructure rollout. H2M's already installed over 80 hydrogen stations throughout Germany, and it's aiming for up to 400 by 2025. Beyond that, H2 Mobility is itself a partner in the Hydrogen Mobility Europe scheme, under the control of the European Union, to create a Europe-wide station network. We further adapted this ecosystem approach when we announced earlier this year, along with the Port of Rotterdam, the Hightruck consortium. There is strong political and social support for decarbonisation in the Netherlands, and it's clear that decarbonisation of the port itself, the industry around it, and the related heavy-duty transport has to be a priority. So Airliquide, the port, and a truck OEM created Hightruck to mobilise logistics companies, hydrogen suppliers, and retail industry customers, people like Carrefour, to develop such a solution. The aim is to deploy a fleet of 1,000 trucks by 2025 across the Netherlands, Belgium, and Western Germany, along with the necessary refuelling infrastructure and the hydrogen supply to satisfy them. Finally, I mentioned earlier the Incheon project. As you probably know, Air Liquide joined forces with Hyundai and HyNet, the hydrogen station network in Korea, to set up a bus project at the airport. The project includes the 2 largest capacity refueling stations to date in Korea. Hyundai will supply the buses, we will supply the hydrogen and the filling stations, while HyNet will operate the stations, and they also plan to open them up to the retail market to further support the rollout of passenger vehicles in the country. So those are some practical examples of Air Liquide's efforts to develop ecosystems around the world. What lessons have we learned? First, leaders must bring a vision and a drive to the project, with a willingness to adapt traditional business models and develop entirely new ones. Partners must act as true partners, sharing experience, risk, and commitment. And we have to listen to a much more diverse range of voices, not just our traditional customers, but new and agile entrepreneurs and startups, policymakers, politicians, NGOs, and of course society in general. As we look into the future, we'll see such ecosystems becoming bigger and more complex. A large-scale supply chain will increasingly integrate liquid hydrogen, which itself brings added complexity. A hydrogen energy system will likely evolve, involving imported as well as locally produced liquid product, and that will require further coordination through the supply chain. Air Liquide will use its strengths and experience in production and handling of liquid hydrogen to help initiate these new complex ecosystems in Korea and elsewhere. Our experience in liquid hydrogen originates from our work with the space industry and with high-tech industries with CERN in Switzerland and the ITER nuclear fusion research project. Now, while these might seem highly specialized in the context of the energy transition, they have actually contributed valuable developments to our liquid hydrogen offer today. So in conclusion, ecosystems are critical in developing effective hydrogen solutions and in using public and private money to deliver society's needs efficiently, rapidly, and profitably. We've plenty of examples of local ecosystems establishing local supply chains. Similar structures will need to develop to coordinate new hydrogen-based international energy vectors, aligning energy production with distribution and end demand. And the Hydrogen Council will continue to provide a forum for ecosystem development at the global level. Air Liquide looks forward to remaining a key partner in many of these efforts in the future. Thank you.